Good morning. My name is Deputy Director Jihwan Eo from Carbon Neutrality Strategy Team in Korean Ministry of Economy and Finance. I am here to introduce to you the carbon market in Korea. Specifically, I'll explain to you the state and trends of Korean Emissions Trading Scheme, or K-ETS. So as you might already know, ETS is an institution in which the emission allowances are issued to the large emitters, and then surplus emissions can be traded among the participants. For example, in this diagram, company A actually emits less than the provided allowances, like here. So the company can sell the excess allowances to the other companies. In contrast, company B emits more than provided allowances, so it needs to buy the allowances in same amount of its excess emission. So on the right, you can see some basic information related to K-ETS, like emission cap, participants, and allocation methodologies. So one of the main objectives of K-ETS, like every other carbon pricing system, is to achieve the reduction target in a cost-effective way. So you might have seen the graph on the right several times in economics, but to explain briefly, if an external cost called pollution exists, the economy produces more than the optimal level, thereby causing the excess social cost in the size of gray triangle. How ETS works is by setting the emission cap so that the Q star, the optimum production level, can be achieved. In the real world, the cap is often set based on the National Determined Contribution, or NDC. Meanwhile, the participating companies decide on whether to buy or sell the allowance based on its reduction cost and the market price of allowances. So in the end, the companies with the lowest reduction cost end up reducing greenhouse gases, and thereby NDC is achieved cost effectively. Mr. Kapriyadi from Indonesia has presented us with some basics about carbon tax. And in my personal view, in the ideal world of economics, carbon tax is supposed to work in a similar way. But I think the difference is that carbon tax is sets more priority on price level, while ETS puts the optimum production level as priority. So in a world of uncertainty, it is up to the government's priority to decide on which institution to choose. Another objective of K-ETS is to create green revenue by selling allowances in government auction, and then reinvest this revenue in carbon neutrality programs such as R&D in green technology, or setting up the reduction facilities. So in 2021, Korean government launched the Climate Response Fund in size of 2.5 trillion won, which is about $2 billion, to specifically manage these green revenue and expenditure. So this is part of the virtuous cycle of carbon neutrality that Korean government is willing to build, creating green revenue by running the ETS system, and then use these revenue for carbon neutrality projects. So let me briefly introduce to you the history of K-ETS. After its first launch in 2015, the institution is now within its third phase. So I will explain some major changes in the institution on the upcoming slide, but one of the main issues in running K-ETS has been the discussion with the business sector. So the business sector has been and is still raising concern on K-ETS impact on its industrial competitiveness. So for this reason, the Korean government has been has been keen on trying to reflect the voice of business sector. One of the example is to include policy measure for the industry when making K-ETS basic plan on 5-year basis. Yeah, so when K-ETS was first introduced in 2015, the allowances were 100% freely allocated. And then in 2018, the allowance auctioning was first introduced at a share of 3%. Now this auctioning share has risen to 10%. The ETS coverage from the national greenhouse gas emissions, as well as the number of participating entities, has risen steadily, now covering about 3/4 of national emissions. Yeah, you can see this information below. And as for the market, KRX, or Korean Exchange, oversees the market, which trades the annual allowance, or KAU. So not only compliance entities, but also financial companies like security firms participates in the trade to vitalize the market. So the current allowance price has been fluctuating in the level between 10 to 40,000 won, which is about $8 to $30 per ton. So K-ETS is now in preparation for phase 4, starting from 2026. For your information, one phase is in duration of 5 years. So one of the crucial tasks in phase 4 for Korean government is to set the institution so that it could contribute in achieving the ambitious NDC goal, which is reducing 40% of greenhouse gases of 2018 by 2030. Adjusting emission cap and auctioning larger share of allowances are some of those examples. The Korean government is also trying to support the entities in reducing greenhouse gases, like providing support for investment and incentives for allocation. The third task is to promote the market function within K-ETS by introducing additional market participants and diversifying products and services in market. Lastly, the Korean government is seeking ways to promote international cooperation and maintain the institution in line with global standard. All these tasks will be reviewed and included in K-ETS basic plan for phase 4, which is underway in cooperation between Ministry of Economy and Finance and Ministry of Environment in Korea. So this is the end of my presentation on K-ETS. In this last slide, I will briefly cover the voluntary carbon market in Korea, which is in its initial stage of development. So as Mr. Forney has described earlier, the voluntary carbon market is created voluntarily by private sector, unlike compliance market like ETS, which is run by government. So it is unbound to certain national institution. The participants can trade credits freely in the market or the platform that certain private operator has created. So there are some initial platforms in Korea that has just been launched, such as Poppool, which is created in 2021. And also, Carbon Reduction Certification Center has also been created by KCCI to support this initial market to be settled. Yeah, so thank you for listening, and this is my end of presentation. So if there are any questions, please feel free to share it with us. Thank you.